Praise be our Lord Jesus Christ, now and forever. Massa God good, all the time, Massa God good. So for the next two sessions, starting from today, in this month of February, we will deal with themes related to February, the Black History Month. And today we will explore Africa in the Bible. And next time, the Rastafarian interpretation of the Bible, as we live in the islands where Rastafarian movement is quite prevalent, popular and spreading. And so, where is Africa in the Bible? You know, from the very beginning, and I'll be using today the African Bible, which is really American translation of the Bible, New American Bible with African commentaries. So where do we see Africa in the Bible? From the very beginning of Genesis, when it is identified with the land of Cush, and the Cushites are Africans from the east part of Africa at the foot of the Nile River. Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, and Somalia were pretty well-known lands to the ancient people of the Bible. These lands are identified as the lands of Cush, inhabitants are Cushites. You will find the land of Cush already in chapter 2 of Genesis, verse 16, when the four important rivers of the original Garden of Eden are listed, and the Cush is around the river Gihon, which originally was probably identified with Nile River, but later in the book of Kings, it is one of the little brooks in Jerusalem. If you read 2 Kings, for example, chapter 18, verse 17, or Isaiah, chapter 7, verse 3, or 36, verse 2, 29, verse 9. Cush in the Bible also means black. So the human races are identified right from the start of the Bible, when Cush, a black man, is probably the oldest son of Ham and the father of Nimrod in Genesis chapter 10, verse 8, and 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 10. Later on, the land of Cush is associated with Ethiopia. But in Hebrew language, the word for Ethiopia remains as Cush. In Psalm 68, verse 31, Isaiah chapter 18, verse 1, Jeremiah 46, verse 9, and in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, it is also associated with Elam. Isaiah 45, 14 with Sabaeans, and Ezekiel in chapter 38, verse 5 with Persia. So please pause the video anytime to check this biblical text that I mentioned so fast for yourself. So it is concluded that the land of Cush also included Arabia. The Arabs, even before Islam, were bringing African slaves to Arabia from as far as today's Tanzania and Zanzibar. This capturing of slaves from Eastern Africa by Muslims continued until year 1900. Imagine that. When only 125 years ago from today, the last bastion of slavery from Africa was abolished in the Treaty of Brussels, and it was practiced by Muslims until then. Many people do not know this, as we are more concerned about slavery practiced by Europeans from the West Sub-Saharan Africa to the New World and the Americas and the Caribbean. So some years ago, I was able actually to visit Bagamoyo in Tanzania, where Christians took or bought out of the slaves from the Muslims traders and made them free in their big mission embarkment. The recent saint of the early 20th century, Saint Josephine Bakita from Sudan, whose feast day we just celebrated on February the 8th, is just one example of liberated slave from Sudan by Christian family from Italy, who later, of course, became a nun, and after her death on February 8, 1947, she died nun and was taken as a slave, was proclaimed as one of the most recent Catholic African saints. So Google her and read or see her life on YouTube. So we can say that East Africa, together with Arabia, where black Africans were shipped and enslaved, is identified with Cush as the land of black people. And We know that Cush, I already mentioned, meaning black. So Egypt is identified from the book of Genesis, from chapter 12, verse 10-20. Egypt belongs to Africa. And in the book of Exodus as a great empire in Africa in ancient times, about 4,000 or more years ago. Then Egypt splintered, especially in the south, splintered to the small kingdoms, and Ethiopia was one of them. Thus, in the Greek translation of the Bible, the word Ethiopia is used instead of the land of Cush in the later writings like in Psalms and the prophets. So the first time when Ethiopia is used instead of land of Cush is actually in 2 Kings chapter 19 verse 9, when a king Tirhakah of Ethiopia is mentioned. And so a powerful kingdom of Ethiopia existed alongside kingdoms of Judah and Israel before fall of Jerusalem to Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian exile. So it existed before that. So the power, wealth, and splendor of that kingdom in Africa, of Ethiopia, is acknowledged, for example, in Psalm 68, verse 39, in Psalm 87, verse 4, and in Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 11, where it hints that the people in the kingdom of Ethiopia knew that God of Israel and were bringing gifts to Jerusalem, acknowledging God of Israel. Other prophets like Nahum, chapter 3, verse 9, Ezekiel, chapter 29, verse 10, and 30, verse 5, 38, verse 5, fear Ethiopia as a threat to Israel, and of course, prophesy against it. So some prophets are against it. However, positive prophecies about Ethiopia become fulfilled as the first foreigner to believe in Jesus gets baptized by Philip. And it is Ethiopian official to Candace of Ethiopia, the queen of Ethiopia, in Acts chapter 8, verse 26 to 40. And before even any Roman like Cornelius is baptized, which we hear Peter baptize him in Acts chapter 10. So Africa is present in the Bible from the very beginning as a land of Cush, and then a powerful kingdom of Ethiopia, and a first African Christian reported in Acts of the Apostles. So I will see you next week for the session on Rastafarian interpretation of the Bible. God bless you. See you next time.